Hello, my name is Yang Kyung-kim. I would like to announce about the garden and plant breeding lectures that we had last week. I will briefly talk about the garden first, then I will explain plant breeding. I will announce about the garden first. I will talk about the definition and role of garden in modern landscape architecture. First, garden constitutes the external space of a building. Second, as a basic space that supports the unique functions of buildings, such as housing and working. Third, a place where plants, tombstones, facilities are placed on display and cultivated and maintained. Last, in academic terms, garden is a space where maintenance such as arrangement, display, and cultivation of various materials composed of plants and natural elements is performed for cultivation and inclusion of cultural, educational, and environmental values of people's life and nature. In addition, the garden is an environmental component and plays a role of stability, comfort, and emotional formation of members. Changes in Western gardens are told around the English gardens. Prior to the 18th century, it was a former gardens that attempted to radio alle vista, French henge notes, and so on. The photo on the left is the Hampton Court in England, and the right is the Palace of Versailles in France, both of which are part of the former gardens. The picture of Versailles Palace was taken by myself, but I'm sorry that I haven't seen the palace for a long time. In the 18th and 19th century, landscape gardens were made. The landscape garden is influenced by the works of landscape artists and wants to run a landscape-like garden. Landscape gardens are naturally positioned at the right places, such as trees, buildings, waters, and photography, as seen in nature. After the 19th century, industrialization shifted an attention to the style of individual plants rather than the landscape of wide view. As a result, foreign plant seeds were attracted to the collection and exhibition, and the horticulture industry was developed. Next is plant breeding. Plant breeding can be defined in many ways. First, techniques to improve the useful value of the target crop by creating new genotypes in order to improve crops in the form desired by humans. Second, techniques to artificially alter genotypes in order to increase the utility value of plants. Third, development activity of plants with human characters. Fourth, scientific technology to change the genetic abilities of things into the directions that humans want. That is, plant breeding is the art and science of plant genetic improvement using conventional statistical and or molecular techniques in making their selections. So, why would you do plant breeding? As the world population grows, we encounter food problems, and one of the ways to solve them is plant breeding. By 2050, the world's population will be 9 billion people, and so the world food needs to increase by 70%. So, what is the process of plant breeding? First, we must breed an object and predict the current problem and the future changes to recognize the problem. Then, set up your breeding goals in concrete and feasible way. The breeding target is mainly considering the increase in yield and disease resistance. Third, we will search for mutation and make a selection. In this step, evaluation of genetic resources and selection of breeding materials. Variations include artificial crosses, artificial mutations, and chromosome mutations. First, we select mutation strengths and mutation groups that meet our breeding goals. The qualification test is carried out for selection, followed by posterity test, productive test, and regional adaptability test. If all the above tests are done, you will register the new variety after selection. Finally, the seed of the newly registered variety are produced and distributed to the farmers who can adapt to the new variety. Last, let me talk about cultivar. Cultivar is an end product of plant breeding. A cultivar is a group of plants distinct for specific traits with 3 traits controlled by genes, which remain uniform and stable through generation of multiplication. Therefore, cultivar is a vessel containing a collection of favorable genes and the minimum number of unfavorable genes. First is distinctness. Color, shape, and so on should be different from existing varieties. The second is a uniform variety. When new varieties are planted that year, all phenotypes should come out the same. Last is a stable variety. When new varieties are planted, they should continue to be the same 1 year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, and so on. Thank you for listening to my presentation.